Let's keep the judgment out of it. Don't judge your partner. If they think something's hot or exciting, don't judge them. Don't make it about you. Explore your sexuality. Don't box yourself in. Don't follow these cultural restrictions. You know, we weren't given these organs for no reason. If we weren't meant to have pleasure, we wouldn't have been given them. We wouldn't have been created with them. What I think is crazy is most people do not realize that the clit is actually about the size of a dick. It's just internal. And it's really sad to me that one sentence shaped my sexuality. And I did not get good sex ed from school. I did not get good sex ed from my family. It was all about reproduction and how you have a baby. Well, that's not sex.
Warning, may contain sexuality, clitoris, audiobooks, podcasting, and/or peanuts. Ian Woodstock.
We're talking with Ruan Willow today. She's an erotic author. She does voiceover narration for audiobooks and has her own podcast as well. And we were talking a little bit about how I myself have started this podcast, and part of the thing that I've thoroughly enjoyed is facing my stigmas and speaking to people openly and honestly about their different lifestyle choices, why they do that. And what you're going to find out almost exclusively is every way of life that you thought was wrong, probably there's a place in life that it does belong, and it can be a good part of the joy that I think we all are seeking here on this earth. Last season, I think I was telling you a little bit about, I kind of jumped into it meaning to not have a topic, but we kept on talking about drugs and psychedelics, and I would joke about how I now have a drug podcast. And this season, we had some swingers on the show, and now I'm speaking with you. And so I'm thinking next season will have to be rock and roll so I can get all three of them. But today we're going to talk about sex, though. And everyone loves sex if you've had it. I think that it's such a huge integral part of everyone's life. We need to talk about it more. I've said so many times on this show that people need to share their darkness, meaning we need to talk about things that we're scared to, and it's going to help those people around us. We can stand up and be vulnerable, and that's going to help other people be able to stand up tomorrow, and so on and so forth. So what we missed on the first episode, not first episode, but the first part of the episode that didn't record right, we were talking a little bit about both of our childhoods being pretty conservative. Could you kind of give us a little retelling of that so the listeners can hear about it, and kind of what your childhood was like and how that affected you?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a Christian household, and it was quite conservative. Basically, I remember one point where I was probably in, elementary school, where I was extraordinarily excited. I had found out that touching myself between my legs brought me a lot of pleasure. And I was so excited. And, as any child, I was like, I gotta tell my mom this. This is amazing. I was so excited. I was so exuberant. And I ran to her and I'm like, Mom, I cannot believe this. I just found out that touching between my legs feels amazing. And she looked at me and she said, you shouldn't be doing that. That one sentence completely shaped it completely shaped my masturbation, my sexuality for decades. I guess I didn't say this in the last part, I became a grinder because I was obeying. I wasn't touching. I was grinding. And so that became my style of masturbation for like literally years. And it's really sad to me that one sentence shaped my sexuality. And I did not get good sex ed from school. I did not get good sex ed from my family. It was all about reproduction and how you have a baby. Well, that's not sex. That's like a separate topic. Reproduction is a separate topic from sex. Sex and pleasure is different than reproduction, but our schools put them together.
That's an interesting way to think about it. Yeah. they're definitely not the same thing. And well,
No.
I had a very similar upbringing, as I kind of told you before, where, and in the Mormon church, I'd shared with on the show many times how I was raised. It's when you're married and period. There's no ifs and or buts. In fact, my mom would teach our daughters that if someone is coming to sexually attack them, it'd be better for them to die than to let it happen.
Ah, jeez.
And she truly believed that, and I don't hold it against her because that's what she was taught. She was trying to do what
Yeah.
she thought God was wanting her to do. But the amount of joy that I lost out on because I thought anytime that I did anything sexual at all, regardless of how like innocent it was, now looking
Yeah.
back, it kind of makes me a little sad, a lot sad,
Yeah.
that like
Yeah.
I missed out on so much of my childhood not being able to
Yep.
experience these things, and when I did, it was surrounded with pain and suffering, my own
And shame.
self-flagellated. Yeah, exactly. So when was it? What was the turning point to where you said, "No, I'm not going to let my brain tell me this is bad anymore"?
Well, for me, a huge change for me as a woman was actually instituting sex toys into my life, because it was something that, at first I was like, oh, I don't know. I don't think I need that. I don't want that. But then I tried it, and it opened up the world for me to stimulation that I had never had before. And it actually brought me to understanding what an orgasm really is, what it feels like, for my body. Like, I didn't understand that before, and I didn't even necessarily, even if I had reached it prior to that, I didn't understand it, and I couldn't really fully embrace it or understand it or accept it because I had so much shame. I had so much, this isn't about me. This is about someone else. This is about, it wasn't about me. And so what the sex toys brought to me was, I started out with a simple wand that is advertised perhaps like on Amazon as a massager. You know what I mean? Like a personal massager. It looks like a fucking microphone, right? But it's pink. They have black ones too. But I have a black
Those are
one as well.
bigger.
But they're pink, right? And so that was my first stimulation enough on my clit to be like, like, whoa, like it was like fucking mind blowing. I'm like, this is what I was supposed to be feeling all this time, and I hadn't been feeling it. So it blew up my brain, and so I started to explore. And it's like kind of like one of those things. Once you taste something, you can't ignore that you tasted it. Once you see something, you can't ignore that you saw it. It's so in your face that you're like, I was fucking missing out before. You didn't even know you were missing out. You had no idea. But now you know. So you can't not explore it. And so now I have well over 40 sex toys, and they're all different. They all impact me differently. And I have a hard time calling any of them bad because they're either a finisher or they're an edger. And an edger gets me to the finisher gets me all the way there. Stimulation, it's all about what do you need? And you need to find out that for your own body. What do you need to feel this? And people who don't do it are missing out. I'm sad to say, but they're really missing out.
Kind of makes me jealous that I have a penis.
That's the other thing too, that the multiple orgasms that a woman can experience is kind of mind blowing. And I can say I've experienced multiple different types of orgasms that I don't think I would have ever known about. And so I think about people who have passed away not knowing this, and I'm like, wow, they really didn't get this part of life. They missed out.
And how terrible is that? I used to know exactly what life was about. God put us here for a certain reason, and it all made sense.
Yes.
And then when I realized that there's other, lives out there, there's other beliefs, and there's other ways of viewing this existence, and you start thinking about it in more of an objective standpoint, how sad is it that like you said, we're here to experience things. We're here to learn. We're here to grow, and to take out
Yes.
such a huge part of an existence is just, in my opinion, it's awful. And that's why I'm so glad people like you are able to openly and unabashedly talk about things like clits or clitoris, clitori. What's the
Right.
plural of clitoris? I don't. I took
It's
physiology, but it's been a while.
well, and they don't include it in physiology. It's been excluded from medicine, and that's another thing we talk about. It's been excluded from medicine and diagrams and even models for many years. It used to be included actually years ago. The clit used to be included, but now you go to the doctor's office and there's no clit on the diagram. Would you ever see a diagram without a penis? No,
Huh. I never
you
even thought
wouldn't.
about that. So
I
I guess I'll have to look now because I hadn't been looking for the clit like most men. But now that I know, I'm going to check this out because the little I know about pleasing a woman right now is that a huge part of it is about just that teeny tiny little bit. Which another thing that got cut off from our previous part of the recording was I didn't realize the
yes.
huge variance in sizes as well. So they've completely left that off of charts from the past, huh?
They have. And I think when I've talked with other authors, and some people have said back in the 1800s, it was acknowledged. It was acknowledged in medicine. The clit was acknowledged, and it like got like wiped out. It got erased from medicine like it doesn't exist. And it's an organ. The clitoris is the only organ in human existence that exists only for pleasure. The penis has multiple purposes. The clit has only one purpose. It's pleasure, female pleasure, and it is completely ignored. And what I think is crazy is most people do not realize that the clit is actually about the size of a dick. It's just internal. And I have a friend, I think, I'm trying to remember what her name is, what her organization is. I think the Center for Erotic Intelligence. Her name is Mal. And she was one of the first people that created an animation that shows the internal structure of erectile tissue that is the clitoris. And it kind of looks like a wishbone. It's got all these it's got several like bulbs and branches, and it's actually quite large. And the G spot is a part of it. So that little nub on the outside is basically like the head of a penis, and it is very small compared to a head of a penis. But it is very similar, but it's hard to locate, especially based on what size it is. It can be small, medium, or large.
So if it's larger because more is exposed, do you women with a larger clitoris have more pleasure?
No, not necessarily. It just depends on what it takes to get them off. For instance, I just had an interview with some podcasters that talk about this quite frequently. And one of the podcasters, they had done this class where they were taught to visualize their pussy, to look at their clit, and they like had a mirror and they were looking down there and they were looking at the size of their clitoris. And one of the women had a small clitoris, which means it's probably about the size of a grain of rice. So if you're like popping off that grain of rice, she's not going to come. Think how small that is, right? And think about if you are stimulating a penis, if you go off that penis, your arousal starts to go down, right? If you go off this little tiny bit of grain of rice, she starts to lose her edge. She's not going to come. That's highly specific. That is very small. That is minute. That is very concentrated. It is very small. So for her, she particularly likes the clit suckers because it has like a little circle and it sucks on that area. And other toys may be too stimulating to her where she may actually go numb and not be able to climax because it's like overstimulated. So it depends on what kind of clit you have, what type of sensation you get off to. And so many people say this where it's like, you don't know what you like until you're doing it. But interestingly, I didn't, and this was something I learned recently, I didn't realize the size impacts that and directs how you're going to get off and how much pressure you need and how much stimulation you need. That's kind of mind blowing, right?
I never even would have thought to think about that, and so now I have to go back to my drawing board. And as a guy, you have that, like, that fear that you're not doing enough. You know, it's like the faked orgasm is the joke that you hear in the movies all the time because,
Yeah,
well, it happens all the time. And you
right.
can't really blame the guys either because at
Hmm.
least with the girls, when you do something that feels good, you know it feels good. With the guy, all we have to go off is feedback. And unfortunately,
Yeah.
for some people, feedback's kind of a hard thing.
Yes, so many women have a hard time talking about this. And it's because of our culture. We've taught that, it's so crazy to me. Okay, so it's okay to like a strawberry. It's okay to like a raspberry. It's okay to like something that flavor and pleasure on your tongue. When it comes to the genitals, we're not supposed to talk about pleasure. A massage across the rest of your body is okay to talk about. Why do we single out pleasure is different in our genitals? We've been taught this. That's why.
And the only way to change that is exactly what you're doing specifically. Me,
Mhm.
bringing you on the show, I'm doing my small part, but you've dedicated your life to helping people get aroused. I mean, that's pretty beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I feel like so much of our lives, so much of our culture has told us to ignore that part. It's supposed to just happen, or it's not important, or one person's is more important than another. And it's just really sad to me because people are missing out on the so much goodness. A massage feels great, right? So does an orgasm, but somehow our society views it differently and it's bad. I'm supposed to talk about things. But in the end, it's all pleasure. Why are we separating oral pleasure of a strawberry from an orgasm? Why? Why are we doing this? Makes no sense.
So you mentioned with the, excuse me, I had a little some go down the wrong throat. With the smaller clitoris, you heard that suckers tend to work better. Is there something with a larger clitoris? So if we have, the women that are listening to this show, which we have a few, more than I expected actually, because as a bald bearded guy, I'm like, why would anyone want to listen to this? But is there like a spectrum of toys that work differently that actually follow the line of small clit to large clit that they can maybe start trying out without just blindly grabbing one at the store?
Yeah, I know the two women that I talked to, one of them, they found out that their clit is very small and it's like the size of a grain of rice. The clit head, I should say the clit head. It's not her entire clitoris. The rest is inside her body. The external clitoral head is just like the size of a grain of rice. So that means her access to pleasure is very, very tiny, right? And then you've got the medium, which is like about the size of a kernel of corn. And then the third one is about the size of a date. And interestingly, when I was talking to them, the one woman had the size of the grain of rice, and the other woman had a medium. And the medium woman said, multiple toys pleasure me. I can get off to multiple different types of toys. Whereas the woman with a smaller clit said, no, 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 that doesn't work for me. I either need G spot and clitoral stimulation at the same time, or I need like a clit sucker. So that's the interesting part too. So women with smaller clits might be like, oh, that toy didn't do anything for me. I'm done with sex toys. They don't work. No, no, you need to explore other ones. And the one with a medium clit had more options that were available to her that got her off. So it was easier for her to get off. I mean, she's like, well, most sex toys work for me. And so that was the difference. So I would say really what you need to start with is something very clitoral stimulated, unless you can figure out what size clit you have, which you can by looking at it, exploring maybe, but and there are classes that can help you figure this out. But I would say starting with a clit sucker or the Zoomio toy, which looks like a big pen and it's very concentrated in its stimulation. It's like a very small tip. And the interesting thing with that kind of toy is actually it's so minute, it's so concentrated that you can figure out where on your clit with this little head is most stimulating to you. And that's something that I found out. And I only found out because I used the Zoomio toy. I found out which quadrant of my clit is the most stimulating to me. I would have never found that out because with the clit rose sucker, it goes all the way around like a circle, right? But the Zoomio is so pinpointed that you can put it on different parts of your clit to find out which parts are the most stimulating, the most inflaming of your lust. And for me, it happens to be the right upper quadrant of my clit. So this is what teaches people. You need to know your own clit. You need to know your own body. And if you don't, get some sex toys.
And then educate your partner. Because
Exactly.
I would love to know which quadrant my wife has the little hot button for. I would love to know that.
That's the other thing I get from people like, oh, sex toys replace men. No, 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 no. This is a tool of enhancement to know your own body and then bring it to your partner and enjoy it together. There is no replacement. There is no way a toy can replace a human being. It's impossible. Impossible. But you can bring that knowledge and that toy to your partner and be like, look at what I found out. This is what gets me to explosion. And then share that and do it together.
You said something earlier about reproduction versus sex and how those are actually very different. You don't these days even have to have sex to reproduce. And I think that lots of the time we confuse, romantic relationship with sex as well. And I think there is a very distinct difference. But because of our culture, we have those so intricately tied together, even to the point where there's guilt involved if there's any extramarital activity. And masturbation definitely falls into that range. And I don't know a way for people to get out of that mindset other than the way I went through it, and I think all of us have through, and it's through just a lot of pain and suffering of like understanding yourself, learning that, hey, no, you are okay, this is okay, you don't have to feel terrible about doing these certain things. And I think that some people, and I won't talk about specific names or anything, but I've spoken to people openly when these types of things come up, they feel like they can't masturbate, and it's usually the females that they don't feel like they should. They feel like that should just be with your husband. What would you tell them? How would you explain to them the importance of having their alone time?
Well, I would say, do you think you have to eat a strawberry in front of your husband to enjoy it? No, you fucking don't. No, you fucking don't. You can go anywhere and enjoy a strawberry. And does that mean you're not going to enjoy the strawberry the next time? No. You're going to enjoy a strawberry every fucking time, whether you do it by yourself or with your husband or your spouse or your partner. That's silly. We have these separate definitions for pleasure, for sex, and for other things. Other things are all okay. Massages are okay. Going to get a haircut is okay. Someone touches your head, your neck, touching your skin. That's okay. That's all right. But somehow we separate how it's different for our sexual organs. And it's really quite silly. I mean, I'm not going to enjoy strawberry. I'm not going to not enjoy a strawberry with my partner. I'm going to enjoy it by myself. I'm going to enjoy it with my partner. Maybe you enjoy it better one way or another, but it doesn't negate the pleasure in the other way. The point of it is, you need to figure out your own body. You need to figure out what your pleasure is, and it's not evil. Pleasure through orgasm will bring you, not only will it bring you knowledge about your body and what brings you pleasure, it will bring you stress relief. It will bring you extra blood flow to your organs. It will actually increase your libido. So masturbating is a self-propelling thing. It will increase your libido to have sex with your partner. So partners should never look back on that and be like, oh, well, you masturbated without me, then I'm not important. No, the more you masturbate, the more you want to have sex. Because you're thinking about sex, you're stimulating that organ, you're bringing blood flow to that area, you're thinking about it. It's only going to increase your libido and your sex drive and improve your sex life with your partner.
So, moving on from the clit, you brought it up a couple times now, and this is something that I've been told may or may not be mythical. It's the G-spot. What do we need to know about that?
Well, it's not very inside, not very far inside the woman, and it can be in different locations. This is the other part where I think it's very difficult for partners of females to understand. How do I stimulate her? It's kind of a mystery, but that's where communication comes in. It can be very close to the vaginal opening. It can be a little bit further back, and it's different for every woman. And again, think about it this way. Is dick size universal? No. We have 10, 12-inch dicks. We have 3-inch dicks and everything in between. The same thing for the clit, but we can't see it. So she needs to say what it feels like. This is what it feels like for me. This is what gets me off. And so kind of the way the clit looks internally, it's kind of like a wishbone. It has these lobes and these arms. Well, they can be different sizes. This isn't fully documented, but they're starting to officially document it in medicine. There's a man who does trans surgeries. Oh, he's just fascinating. So he just recently published an article in medicine. He's been able to figure out how many nerve endings are in the clit. Okay. Are you ready? It's more than double that is in the dick.
Really?
Okay? It's well over 10,000. I think it's like 10,248 or something crazy like that. Nerve endings are in the female clitoris.
Now, that's not just the tip though. That's like you said, the
Well,
clit goes
that's a
all
good
up inside
question.
you, right?
I would think it would be across the whole thing. I cannot say for sure because I did not actually read his article, but I do know that he said he's found that many nerve endings because basically in his surgeries, he's like reconnecting these nerve endings to create a new genitalia. And so he has like counted these, right? So it's well over 10,000 in the female clitoris, and the male penis has around 4,000. So this also tells you how much more you could actually stimulate a woman if you tried, if you knew what she liked, if you knew what got her off. You can fucking blow her mind and shoot her to the fucking sky.
I love it.
Right? It used to be that people thought it was 8,000, but this is really funny. They used to think it was around 8,000 nerve endings in the clitoris. But you know what they base that on? I don't even know why they know this. They base it on a cow.
Huh.
A female cow.
So we know
But
more
now
about
that-
a cow's sexual organs than a female's. Okay. Or a human female, I guess I
So
should
they
say.
just kind of like assumed that female humans were similar and we had 8,000 as well. But this dude who's doing these surgeries has actually done this and he's seen all the nerve endings and he's reconnected them and he's counted them. There's over 10,000.
So that is fascinating. I don't want to get too off topic, but when you're doing a trans surgery, you actually can create a penis that has actual nerve endings with sexual pleasure?
Yes. Okay. So this is totally crazy. You know, we're born male or female, right? But we start out with the same organs as an embryo. It depends on which hormones are given to you, whether you turn your genitalia turns into a penis or a vagina. So we start out the same. If you give hormones to someone, you can actually start to change the size of their genitalia. This is how trans become like male. They increase the size of their clitoris into being more closer to the size of a penis. It'll never be as big, from what I hear, as an actual penis, but it will enlarge it. So people can actually change the size based on hormones. Isn't that crazy? And that just shows you that we're all really the same, only there's different hormones applied to us in utero, which, since we start from the same cells, the same organs, they just start to differentiate, but they're basically the same thing, but they can be even altered. So it just shows you how much of our gender is most likely cultural.
Interesting. So the G spot, we kind of brushed over that one real quick. Is that just a part of the internal clitoris?
Yes, sorry, I totally went the wrong way. Yes, it is a part of it. It's a network, and it is in a different spot for it. for all women, but it's not very far inside the clit. So this is why penis size doesn't really matter, because honestly, the clit and the G-spot are the two stimulating parts of a woman. So you don't need to have a really long penis to reach way inside of her. Yes, that can be stimulating for some women to reach like the cervix, right? That can be it. You can have stimulation there. But really, all you really need is the clit and the G-spot. And it is a part of the clitoris, the internal clitoris. It's like a network. So it's like this spongy network just inside the vagina, but it is a part of the clitoral complex or network or whatever you want to say. It's not separate. In other words, people talk about the clit orgasm or the G-spot orgasm. No. It's, I've talked to so many sex coaches, authors, people who are experts on this, that have studied this. It's really all a part of the clitoris. So the G-spot is really just a part of the clitoris, the internal part of the clitoris.
And so you were saying earlier something, and I wanted to circle back to it. Maybe this has part of it. It's all one big neural network, but you said something about how you can have different types of orgasms.
Well, there's different thoughts out there. There's some people who call them different types of orgasms, but other people who kind of know a little bit more say they're just different types of stimulation of the clitoris. It's not like a separate thing so much as they make it sound to be. It's really just stimulating a different part of the clit, whether it be G-spot or the external clitoral head.
So I'm curious, someone once told me that it's easier for them to get off if they're doing anal. I wonder if that's still contact with the clitoris, but the internal part of it.
One of those sex coaches I interviewed had a very interesting comment on that, and it's the only person that ever said it to me. And what she said was, her theory is that the women who particularly like anal penetration or stimulation may have larger clits that extend towards the anus, like the arms of the clitoral complex extend back there. And I thought that was a really interesting thing. I don't think there's any research done on this, but I thought that was a really interesting thought, that maybe that is why some women like it and others don't, because there's no pleasure sensor back there. You might get excited by the fact of it just being what it is, but if you don't have any actual sensation there or nerve endings, it's probably not going to be a trigger for those particular women.
So with all of the, I guess, knowledge that you've gained through your podcast, talking to all sorts of people that have studied this and dedicated their lives to sex, what are the things that you think the majority of the public, the mainstream, don't know, but you think that is very important for everyone to start understanding? Obviously, we've already spoken about self-pleasure using toys, if you're a woman, and we didn't really talk about male toys because, I mean, we're simple creatures, and I don't know if there's much more. My personal experience is it works and then you're done and then you move on. But are there certain things that surprised you when you learned them that you think people should know about that may be able to edify their sex lives?
Well, I think it's no secret that, like you said, men climaxing is very easy. It is very intuitive. It's very out there. Your organs are on the outside. For women, it's much different. We're more complex. We can have different sizes, and our sizes almost really impact us differently than men do. I mean, a penis size isn't going to impact a man's pleasure as much as a woman's clitoral size, because if she's not getting the right stimulation, she's not going to come, right? So I think things for me that are most surprising is that women, we need to really know their bodies. And if you don't, you either need to spend time masturbating with your hand or with a toy to understand your body. And you might think you know, oh, that feels awesome. But what if what you're feeling is only an edging? What if you have not actually reached your climax and you don't know that because you've never tried? You've never been stimulated that far. try a sex toy. Try multiple different sex toys because you don't know what you don't know. You might think, yeah, that feels awesome. But you know what? Edging does feel awesome. But an orgasm, that's totally different. Explore your sexuality. Don't box yourself in. Don't follow these cultural restrictions. You know, we weren't given these organs for no reason. If we weren't meant to have pleasure, we wouldn't have been given them. We wouldn't have been created with them. We were meant to have sexual pleasure. Use it, own it, do it, explore it, feel it out to the max.
I like it. So let's change subject a little bit. I want to hear about your writing. You talked about how it was later in life when you decided to buy that first toy and really delve into your sexuality. Was that when you decided to start writing erotic novels?
No, I've written my entire life. I was one of those kids that would grab a notebook, a spiral notebook, and write a story. And I wrote a lot of poetry in my teenage years. I had a lot of issues and bad things happen, and writing was sort of my release and my healing point. And I continued to write, but I took a giant break from it. In 2016, I started to write more heavily. And I originally started writing romance and just YA romance. And I just felt like it was missing something. I really wanted the sex in it. I wanted the fucking. I wanted the full picture. I didn't want just part of the picture. So I started to explore writing erotica because you could have the full picture relationship. You could have the romance, the love, the cheesy feelings, the rosy, cheesy stuff. But then you also got the emotional release and the satisfaction, the satiation of fucking. So then I got into writing a lot of erotica, which I'm really focusing on now. Not that I'm ignoring the other stuff, but it's really my focus now. So that's really what got me into it. I just wanted more. I didn't want that wall there. I wanted it full. I wanted it real. And to me, the story isn't real without actual sex.
So, do you prefer writing towards the smut spectrum? And I don't know if this was on the previous part that we couldn't get recorded, but there's a spectrum of erotic. It's smut on one end. It's a little bit more graphic, up to the erotic romance. Did I get it right?
Right, exactly. So it's kind of like smut is more a story where it's more mechanical. It's more the actual what happens during the sex. It's more stark, it's more cold, it's more like porn, like traditional porn, right? And then you can go into erotica, which might start to have some more story. And then if you go all the way up to erotic romance, which is the top heat level before you would maybe get into just regular romance, you're going to have story, you're going to have romance, you're going to have love, you're going to have wooing, you're going to have, they're going to have a story of their relationship. And then you're going to have sex as well. So I write across all different areas, heat levels of that. And sometimes it's kind of frustrating for people. They're like, well, this one you wrote more like this and that one you wrote more like that. But I don't know. I think it's just there's value in writing all of them because people get stuff out of them, whatever level they are. They seek what they want. And I don't know. It satisfies something in them. They just need to find what works for them.
So, if one of my listeners is looking to explore some of your works, where's the best place to find it?
I have books on Amazon and Audible, Barnes and Noble, the Nook, Apple, Google, audiobooks.com, Spotify. There's so many different spots. It's so hard.
And
Smashwords is another one. So, and I don't have all works in every different spot because some publishers have restrictions about sharing or where you can put other things if you want it in certain categories. So it's kind of I kind of have stuff in a lot of different places, but can read on Amazon and Kindle Unlimited. You can read for free portions there. I have audiobooks that I can give away codes for free through Audible. because I also do audiobooks, my own and other works. I do other erotica authors as well, other than just my own for audiobooks.
So all of your own works you narrate yourself?
I have so far, yes. I have my next one coming out, which is Ruan's Beach Getaway. I have the two male podcasters from the 69 Whiskey podcast are the two other voices in the book. So it's a heterosexual age gap MILF story. And so one of the men is doing the narration and the other one is being the male character. So this is the three of us. And so that one will probably be coming out in May or April, actually April. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to work with them, and it's been really fun to work with them. So every book is different. Some I do entirely on my own, and others like this one, I have hired male narrators to join me.
Do you have a favorite author that you enjoy picking up their books?
Um, yeah, I do enjoy Lacey Cross and Gigi Wild. Um, it's for me, I really enjoy reading on Medium. Medium is a great subscription site that has so much erotica and other topics. It's not just erotica, but they have so much short erotica, which is really nice sometimes. So I think people don't have time. They might want to read something really short, like, even 10-minute story that's super sexy and hot. Medium is a place to look for that kind of stuff. It's a subscription site. I think it's like $5 a month, but there's so many authors on there. I couldn't even just name one. There's so many. And it's nice because there's even short things all the way down to 1 to 2 minutes. If you want something short and hot or something around 10 minutes, 15 minutes, Medium is your place to go because you have it on your phone anywhere you go too. So that's a huge bonus.
So I don't know the difference between men and women in this regard, but personally, if I'm watching a movie and there's tits, I'm ecstatic. It's my favorite thing ever, right? But if
Yes.
I'm reading a book and they have any sort of sexual, sensual description at all, I get
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable. It's so weird that I can watch smut on TV, but when I read it,
Mm,
it's so much more visceral. And when I say
interesting.
uncomfortable, it's not like, oh, I can't read this. It affects me in a very different way. And I don't know if it's
Mm,
a good or bad different way, and maybe I need to explore that more, but it was very surprising to me, and I've mentioned that to other guys, and they're the exact same way. They said, "Yeah, I'll watch Pornhub for hours, but I
yeah.
cannot read it." They said there's something about reading it, and all the women I've talked to are the exact opposite. They're like, "No, why would I
Yes.
sit there and watch porn for an hour?" But then they'll sit there for 4 hours reading a romantic novel that's,
Yes.
more smut than romance novel.
Yes. Oh, I totally know what you're saying. And it's true. And I think it's a difference of you're watching a porn, right? It's in your face. You have no choice. It's there. But if you're actually reading a story, you're more immersed in it. And you may have some shame associated with that, or like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. But a porn, it's right in your fucking face. You can't avoid it. It's there. There is no involvement of you. But when you're reading something or listening to it, there's more involvement of you in that. So you have more blocks to, you have more shame to enjoying that. But you
Mhm.
can't deny something you see, right? So there's less of you like putting in an effort. You have no choice if it's right in front of your face. It's right there. You see it. You can't be like, oh, I can't do that. You know what I mean? It's just like right there. You can't shirk from it. So you have to enjoy it for what it is because you have no other choice.
Yeah, I need to give it another try. It's been years. I was telling you off again. We're referring back to that 20 minutes where the audio wasn't working, but um, I used to drive a lot, and I was in the
Mm,
oil field, and I'd sit there for hours and hours and hours at a time, and I couldn't sleep, but there was nothing else I could do, and so I got audiobooks. and I was just getting
Yes.
out of college, still had tons of student debt, just did not have a lot of money. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to get this Audible account, but I'm going to get the best
Mm,
bang per buck. So I would search not only, reviews on quality narrators and quality books,
hmm.
but also
Yes.
each book cost the same regardless of how long it was. So I could get a
Yeah.
4 hour book for 1 credit, or I could get a 40-hour book. And so I'm going
Mm.
through and I saw one that got really good reviews. I'm like, I'm going to try this Outlander book. It's 40 hours,
Yeah.
one book. I'll,
Sure.
I'll check it out. Everyone thought it was great. I did not realize that it was more on the romantic side. So I'm sitting there reading it. I'm like, oh, cool, time travel. That's pretty sweet. And then
Hmm.
all of a
Yep.
sudden they're talking about this situation I was just saying, all of a sudden I'm just like in the room by myself and I'm like nervous. I'm like, what is this? And am ashamed to admit that I stopped listening to it because like,
Mm.
I just can't do it. I can't do it. Even though I could sit
Right.
there and watch porn, no, I just can't do
Yes.
that. And
Yep. Yep.
I kind of recommended it to another friend as a joke, and he came back to me. He's like, "What the hell are you having me listen to?" So it's
That's
not
pretty
just
funny.
me. It's not just me. But now that I'm like, my quest is to be more open-minded and really try to
Hmm.
be truly empathetic to other individuals and put myself in their shoes. Maybe that's something that I'll try to revisit and give it a little bit more time to understand the benefit and joy of it.
Yeah. I mean, and I think also overall, I think men are more visual, but it's more passive to watch a porn video than it is to read a book, an erotic book, or listen to one because you're more involved. It's more passive. It's more like thrown in your face. It's just pay attention to me. This is what you're seeing. You know what I mean? So
Maybe
it's
it's
just
more of
more
like
filling up.
one's more of a voyeur and the other one's more of a participant, kind of.
Yes. Oh, for sure. And women tend to like the being more of a participant. They like more of the story. Not that women don't like porn, but I think overall, men just tend to be more visual creatures when it comes to sex.
And there is the societal part of it, and we're seeing each
Mhm.
generation, we're kind of bridging that huge gap that,
Yeah.
we are taking away that stigma. So now we can actually get some good data on what truly are the differences between men and women. Is the reason that women don't like porn is because they were told they shouldn't? I don't know the answer. I'm just throwing out
Right.
bullshit here, which is most of my podcast. But I'm excited to see a world that we're trending towards, true objectivity when it comes to these things, and so we can truly find
Mhm.
out. All right, is there a harm? Because that's why we don't do things, right? To avoid harm.
Right.
And
Right.
is there truly a harm for this? I think masturbation's kind of a good, point is like, are we hurting ourselves by masturbating? Let's have an objective look. That's really truly understand what the lifelong benefits, the pros and cons are. And I think we have enough data now to where we see that masturbation truly is a net positive. I
Yes.
think you can go down, to give credit to both sides, like drugs,
Mhm.
like anything powerful, which sex is incredibly powerful. There is a
Absolutely.
dark side, and I think people can abuse it. They
Hmm.
can maybe tend to put pornography and masturbation above a meaningful relationship, and in that sense, they're missing out on a huge part of existence as well. And so,
Yes.
I think it's just balance is what all of my episodes always come down to, and we're trying to find the meaning of life here. And so but you can't have balance until you know the extremes.
Exactly. That's true. That's true. And I think too, you're not going to know, if you're totally ignoring your partner for masturbation and sexual pleasure without your partner, that's a total different scenario.
Hmm.
If you're just totally just doing it on your own and just not involving them, that's not necessarily, I think that's a bad way to be. But if you're doing it to pleasure yourself, for stress relief, to increase your libido, to learn about your body, that's a total different scenario. Because if you go back to your partner and you can have better sex, that's just a tool. That's a tool to make it better.
I'd rather have really, really, really good sex once a month versus shitty sex every
Mhm.
day.
Exactly. So
And
true.
it doesn't have to be that extreme, but I think that
Right.
what you're saying about going on your own, exploring yourself, figuring that out, and I think this is mostly women because again, guys are like
Mhm.
a an AK-47 and women are like a saxophone. It's way more
Mm,
complicated, and it's
yes.
you fumbling around, and it probably sounds gross at first because it's not doing much. But once you can figure out how to play that instrument, it's a beautiful 5 minute long symphony. Where with the
Yes.
guys, we just pull the trigger and there's a big hole.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And that just comes down to anatomy as well. You're on the outside, we're on the end. It's harder to stimulate and stroke something that's hidden, embedded, covered up by body than something's on the outside.
I get 2 P standing up, and you get 5 minute long orgasms. I don't think that's a fair trade off. It's
Right. It's
awful.
easier for men to come, but women get multiple orgasms. There's sort of a balance there, which kind of makes me chuckle with, our creator that there's that sort of like, balance. It's easier for men to come, but women get multiple orgasms. So, in a way it sort of does balance out a little bit.
So, when you started your podcast, how long has it been? I noticed you've had quite a few episodes when I looked you up.
Yeah, I just finished 2 years. So I've been doing about 2 episodes a week. Sometimes I've done a little more, but um that's what it's been about. And yeah, it's been quite the journey. I never, ever, ever, ever would have guessed that I would be doing audio and doing audiobooks and doing a podcast. That still blows my mind. I was a writer. I still am, but that's how I started. So doing audio was just completely unexpected for me.
Well, I've enjoyed very much having your voice on my podcast, and I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. I've learned a lot. I gotta make my wife listen to this now so she can take some notes. But I myself, I've come to the conclusion that I'm a complete moron in most things, and I'm really trying to own that and understand that with recognizing that I really truly don't have the answers, I can slowly start taking those steps to be a better person overall and a more balanced person. And as we talked about, sexuality is something that if you're human, you're going to run into it, and it's going to be
Yes.
incredibly impactful, and it can be impactful in a very good way, but it can also be impactful in a horrific way. And
Yes.
bringing it out in the open, shining light on it, and not simply the black and white viewpoint of sexuality can only cause harm.
Yes.
Because even though you figured it out and that works for you and you have a peaceful life, we really need to understand that we have such a huge spectrum of humanity. And
Hmm.
sexuality is such a huge part of that because there's a lot of chemicals involved, and
Yes.
when that happens and these emotions happen, we need to be extra careful when we're telling people, hey, this is the right way to do it, and maybe start listening more instead of telling more. And thank you so much for having the courage to really do something that, even though your upbringing said was something that was bad, and you're going to carry that with the rest of your life or through the rest of your life, you've been able to fight those battles and push through, and now you can be a beacon to other people of saying, hey, maybe my way is not your way, but it's okay to find your way, and you need to explore it and be able to enjoy the beauty of what it is instead of just letting that old baggage bring you down. So thank you.
Absolutely. And I think the biggest thing is, so let's keep the judgment out of it. Don't judge your partner. If they think something's hot or exciting, don't judge them. Don't make it about you, because we come into relationships with all this history, all this bad shit baggage, like we were talking about from our childhood, every sexual experience, every relationship. We're coming into this with all this baggage, and we don't need to have judgment be a part of that because we're already restricted by our baggage. Let's have it be open and free and not judge each other, and realize that We've all got baggage. We've all got hardships. We've all got things that have shaped us and made us who we are. But that doesn't mean, why judge that? Let's just enjoy.
Well, Ruan, thank you again. Everyone look up Audible and the million other platforms that she's on. Check out her podcast. I don't think we said the name of your podcast yet.
It's Oh Fuck Yeah with Ruan Willow.
I love it. I love it.
But it's F*CK because they wouldn't let me put the U in there. So it's F*CK.
So when you type it in, OH and then F*CK.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh Fuck Yeah with Ruan Willow with the star for the U.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to reading some of your material and trying to work through my own inhibitions while doing so.
Well, thank you for having me. This was really fun. I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Ian Woodstock.